Good evening. Good evening. Happy 4th of July, and I hope you're having a great holiday off. We have a great show for you tonight. I'm not going to be on for very long, but there's an interesting topic I've been wanting to share with you and the audience. It's related to comments that Jordan Peterson made about the 2022 Sports Illustrated model. I wanted to speak about this weeks ago, but we had some other topics I wanted to get covered because I thought they were very important. But I think this is a pretty important topic. I think it's a light discussion that we're going to have here. And so hit the thumbs up button, like, subscribe, and share this video because we're going to have some very good information. It's going to be talking about beauty and the concept of female athleticism. So stay tuned. We have a great show tonight. Hello again. So I think it was about several weeks ago, maybe a little over a month ago, Jordan Peterson tweeted out comments as something to the effect of, sorry, you're not beautiful, or something to the effect. This is Yumi Nu. She's the model on the swimsuit edition, the 2022 Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. And I'm going to let you take a look at this model. I want you to form your own opinions before I make any comments. But what I want to do is I want to share a video with you, a video of Jordan Peterson making his comments on Yumi Nu being selected by Sports Illustrated in their 2022 video. Now, he makes a number of comments about beauty, athleticism, and the like. I'm going to let you listen to the commentary. I've taken a few notes, and then I'm going to share my thoughts on this interesting topic. And so our title is, why is Jordan Peterson wrong? And so, and I want to say from the outset, I have great respect for Jordan Peterson. Dr. Peterson is very bright. I've listened to a number of his talks on YouTube. I haven't listened to everything, but much of what he says I agree with. I have some differences of opinion here, and I'm going to share that with you. So let's just listen up and stay tuned.
Not everyone is a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, period. And fuck you if you don't like it. I tweeted out, sorry, not beautiful. Yeah, people weren't very happy with that.
And then everyone got upset.
Yes, they did. And then I left Twitter again, more or less, right after that. And everyone assumed that was why, and it wasn't. But no, I looked at the Sports Illustrated cover, and they had a rather overweight young woman, quite symmetrical, nice facial features and so forth, with a very revealing swimsuit on the cover. And I thought, no, not in a personal way, but it's unbelievably manipulative for about 3 different reasons. The first is it's a very tawdry attempt to capitalize on cheap sales. And I mean cheap in a specific way. Sports Illustrated hit the gold mine with their swimsuit cover, I suppose 20 years ago, whenever they established that. Because it was obviously it's a sports magazine, so it's about athletics. It's about athletic people. It's about athletic bodies. And they had a swimsuit issue, and it really was a big hit. And then it became kind of a cultural icon. And it's a very specific kind of cultural icon because it focuses on a very exceptional kind of high-end beauty. Mm-hmm. And so that beauty would involve symmetry and signals of youth, because that's part of beauty, sexual beauty, physical beauty, waist-to-hip ratio for women. But with Sports Illustrated, it's also highlighting a kind of athleticism in body type. And that's a very specific form of beauty. You have to be young, you have to be female, generally, you have to be extremely athletic. You have to be shapely in a very particular way, and that would be with a waist to hip ratio of 0.68, because that's what's been established cross-culturally as ideal from the perspective of male sexual interest, let's say, but that's also associated with fertility.
Yeah.
And so it's a marker that has a biological basis. And so even if you're a very beautiful woman, you're hard pressed to be beautiful enough to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated for the swimsuit issue. And so it's a pinnacle achievement of sorts, and it's focused on a very idealized and specific form of beauty. And that's obviously exclusionary. It's obviously exclusionary. It excludes everyone. Right. And it does that to highlight a kind of ideal, and that's a particular ideal of beauty. And there are some cultural boundaries around that. So you could say, well, it's a westernized form of beauty. It's like, yeah, and you can point to Rubens' paintings of more plump women and say, well, there's an exception. It's like, great. You think you're a genius for finding that exception. Good for you. You know the Rubens painting. Like, more power to you. But that doesn't mean anything at all about the universality of images of beauty. So the cover bothered me a lot because it was a cheap manipulation of something that had been working very well for Sports Illustrated. It was also an insistence that all of a sudden this non-athletic body type is as beautiful as the standard swimsuit model for Sports Illustrated. And it's not. It's not as athletic, and it's not as healthy. And that's that. And it's also not arbitrary. And so the whole thing is a lie. And then it's a lie that's a manipulation of that young woman. Now, she partakes in that because she participates in it. But it's still, they're not on her side. They're exploiting her, as far as I'm concerned. And she may be participating in that exploitation, but they're still exploiting her. So don't pull any moral stunts on me because you're irritated about my opinion about the Sports Illustrated cover when it's bloody clear to anybody with eyes that that was manipulative in 20 different ways. And I'm also not willing to sacrifice these ideals for inclusiveness. It's like, no, not everyone's a genius. No, not everyone's Picasso. No, not everyone's young and healthy. And no, not everyone is a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, period. And fuck you if you don't like it. When I look at someone who's obese on the street, I think, oh, that's too bad. Like, that's too bad. I don't think, obese pig eats too much, has no self-control. I don't think that. I think bad mismatch between genetic proclivity and appalling diet. And the appalling diet is basically carbohydrate heavy and sugar loaded. And fair enough, we tried hard, the whole world, to make calories cheap. And we did that. And so no one's starving, and great. But now we have an obesity problem, and it's a major problem. And I'm not going to pretend that it's okay. It's not okay. That doesn't mean I don't have sympathy for it. And I'm not willing to sacrifice any ideals for this idiot inclusiveness. I'm done with that.
Wow. So he said a mouthful, several mouthfuls. And so I want to break it down. I've taken notes on his comments. And I'll tell you that I get the gist of what Peterson is saying. So the gist of what he's getting at is that Sports Illustrated is trying to be inclusive by putting an overweight, perhaps obese model on the cover in a swimsuit, and perhaps to make a statement saying we accept, obesity, etc. And the gist of what he's saying is that you shouldn't, make exceptions for the sake of inclusiveness, just for the sake of, say, social justice, or, maybe making people feel good about themselves. The whole idea of not fat shaming people, when in fact obesity is a health problem, or I would more specifically say obesity is closely linked to major health problems. So in the general sense, I agree with that general sentiment. However, there's some problems with his discussion in terms of the details. So he goes in and says that, first of all, he makes a comment of the model. And I'm going to share the screen of the model real quick for those of you who are just joining us. This is the person he's commenting on, and her name is Yumi Nu, and she is the 2022 Sports Illustrated cover model. And so, as you can see, she's overweight, obese, and pretty face. And he takes exception to this. He says, nope, sorry, this is not beautiful. So I'm going to address the issue of beauty in a minute, but he starts off with a number of comments about athleticism. So he says Sports Illustrated traditionally has had this deal. The models represented exceptional high beauty. So the phrase he used, exceptional high beauty. First and foremost, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But this exceptional high beauty, he quantifies a waist to hip ratio of 0.68. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. There are different models with different waist to hip ratios who've been featured by Sports Illustrated. So I'm not sure if they went to that. It's a very specific waist to hip ratio. But he uses the terms athleticism and extremely athletic. So these individuals are extremely athletic. Now, if you look at the definition of athleticism, basically it has to deal with your strength, agility, mobility, the ability to move, speed, quickness, and strength. And so, if you want to think about someone who's athletic, you're going to think about a track and field star or maybe female basketball players or swimmers or the like. These are people with extreme athleticism. Models who are thin may not necessarily be extremely athletic. In fact, I'm going to point to some images and give you some cues as to, how they may lack athleticism. Just because someone is small in stature doesn't mean that they're powerful, they're strong, they're quick, and they're very extremely athletic. So I think his argument falls on its face right there by simply implying that these models historically have been extremely athletic, because many of the models on Sports Illustrated were not athletes. And so they don't have any credentials or capabilities have not demonstrated any capabilities of athleticism. You don't measure athleticism just by a photograph, a bathing suit photograph at that. So his argument fails there. There's an implication of health. And so he implies that there's a certain amount of health that's involved with, being thin and quote unquote athletic. However, that's not true. Health is not measured. Again, health is not simply measured on body habits. That's only one component of health. That's one component of physical health. As a board certified cardiologist treating, thousands of patients over 3 decades, I've seen many athletic appearing patients and athletes themselves coming in with poor health, with extreme health issues, whether they're physical or psychological or the like. So health in of itself is not measured based on an image or based on a photograph. And so you have to be careful when you come and try to make this argument based on a health issue. You can say that, well, Sports Illustrated historically has chosen thin models who had a certain look, and that's what they define as beautiful. Okay, that's correct. And I would agree with that. And now they're changing to include women who are considered obese or overweight. Now, if you want to consider that person to be beautiful, that's fine. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but athleticism has a certain criteria. Also, we typically don't know the body composition of swimsuit models. The average body composition and age range from 20 to 39, which is sort of the age range of most of the models, should be a muscle mass between 63 and 75.5%. Do these models have this body composition? There are many people who are very thin who can have a very, very large percentage of body fat. Again, that person's not going to be athletic. They're not going to be healthy, but they can look good in a bathing suit. They can probably make the SI magazine. So I think that his argument falls very short when he tries to make the argument that these models are extremely athletic. That's never been shown to my knowledge. And they have a very specific body composition and that they're healthy, because we don't know their physical health. We don't know what the cholesterol levels are. We don't know other aspects of their health. And one thing I'm going to share with you is a study that looked at fashion models, and they compared the health of fashion models of similar women. And I'm not going to go through this in detail. This is going to be a very short discussion. But here we have a study. The question was, are fashion models fashion models a group at risk for eating disorders and substance abuse. And in essence, it wasn't a very strong study. There was 63 professional fashion models and 123 female controls in this study. And it was really done by a survey. So it's based on recall and survey. So that in and of itself is very tricky in terms of getting the data. But despite that, they saw significant current substance abuse. Well, the conclusion was that they showed that the fashion models were more at risk for partial eating disorders and the use of illicit drugs compared to females in the general population. They were also smaller in BMI. I think the average BMI was about 17.5% for the fashion models, and the BMI for the control population, this group was 20. So this control population wasn't an obese group of women or an overweight group of women. They, on average, were of relatively small stature. And so there is some evidence that models, and we've known for some time that the modeling industry has pressured women to be very, very thin, and also to do things to maintain their thinness. And their health practices have not necessarily been by exercising and being very athletic. Many of them consume, alcohol, illicit drugs. They go on binge dieting and the like. And so this is a criteria that has not one that I don't think this SI screens for, or any other fashion model, fashion magazine screens for when they're looking for models. They're just looking for a look, an image, a body type, and a size. So if your waistline is a certain size, your stomach is flat, that's what they're looking for. I don't think they're measuring your cholesterol level. I don't think they're measuring your strength, how many push-ups or pull-ups you can do, your flexibility. I don't think they're measuring these things. And so from the standpoint to argue that, oh, this is extreme athleticism, I mean, his argument fails on his face because there's no evidence that these women are extremely athletic. And so let me share with you a few photos of some athletes. And just to kind of bring the point home, here are some athletes that some of you may be familiar with. Fastest woman in the world, the late Flojo, who was very athletic, muscular, fast. Now, she's an example of extreme athleticism. However, she had what I think an autopsy showed as a congenital brain disorder, a cavernous meningioma that predisposed her to life-threatening seizure. Here's Venus Williams, very lean and athletic, but Venus Williams suffered from Sjogren's disease. In fact, had to go on a raw plant-based diet to reverse her Sjogren's disease. So even here are two examples of women who are lean and very athletic, probably more athletic than you would see in on the SI magazine cover. However, these women are not free of disease. So health is one of those things that's a relative issue, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Here are the women that won I think it's the 4x400 meter relay in the U.S. Olympics recently. Now, athleticism, they're tall, they're lean, look, they have six packs here, and if you see them in stride, the muscular legs. So in the athleticism, Kim Perot, who played for the Houston Comets years ago, she was very athletic. She died from brain and lung cancer. Now, here's a lady who is, and I'm sorry for the small image, she's a hammer thrower. Now, she's very athletic. She's much stronger than probably anybody's ever been on SI magazine cover, and very heavy muscle mass. Now, if you look at her, she wouldn't have that body habitus that Jordan Peterson is talking about, but she has extreme athleticism, where the SI models do not have extreme athleticism. So again, this argument fails. Yes, Olympic skater, heavy thighs. They have large butts because of the nature of their sport. Extremely athletic, but not necessarily one with that would make SI cover. Now here's Naomi Campbell, and this is Kate. I'm blanking on her last name, but these are two models who were featured in SI magazine. Very lean and thin, but both of them have health issues with drug abuse and the like. And so I wouldn't think that they're extremely athletic. I don't know how many push-ups they can do and how fast they can run the 400 meters. I don't know what their body composition is. So I'm not sure if SI screened them for their athleticism. Now here's a female athlete, a hammer thrower, lots of large muscles in the thighs and muscles in the arms. Now, again, she would be, if you look at her and you just saw her walking down the street, you say, oh, she's obese. But I would dare say she's stronger than an SI model from an extreme athleticism. This is his phrase, extreme athleticism. And I understand he also talked about a certain body habitus, and I agree with that. But extreme athleticism does not constitute body habitus. Somebody who's very thin with a hip to waist ratio of 0.68 is not necessarily extremely athletic. So you have to make a differential of those two. And so this woman has extreme athleticism, but she may not, suit his definition of beauty, and I understand that. So I think his argument fails because one, he's mixing the I don't think he's expressing an understanding of what extreme athleticism is and differentiating that from what a body habits or body composition from an appearance standpoint is. And a body composition does not dictate extreme athleticism, and extreme athleticism does not necessarily give you a certain body composition. Those two are different. And there are many people who are very athletic, who are very strong, quick, agile, who may not fit that, 0.68 hip to waist to hip ratio. I'm not trying to come out and say that obesity is healthy. That's not the point. And I think that was his central theme, but he used his argument was faulty from the standpoint of using athleticism as an example, because the SI models, I don't think, are extreme athletes. And they have the right type of shape, but that doesn't mean that they're very healthy. And it doesn't mean that they have the right body composition. I've had lots of patients who are very thin, but who have extremely high percent body fat. And so that's very unhealthy. And they have high cholesterol, and their blood pressures are high, and they're very weak, and they're tired. And so they're not extremely athletic. So just looking at somebody on a cover of a magazine and looking at their bathing suit saying, oh, yes, you're the right shape and look, does not dictate that you're an extreme athlete, does not dictate that you're extremely healthy. And as far as health is concerned, health is not a static condition. I mean, we all have health challenges, despite what our condition levels are. I think many individuals who exercise regularly, eat healthily, who don't smoke, tend to have a better health trajectory than people who smoke and eat unhealthily and who don't exercise. So there's a certain standard of behavior that you must maintain to maintain a healthy condition or a healthy trajectory, if you will. However, health is a relative thing, and our health, it goes beyond the physical. It goes into the psychological, as I'm sure he knows. He's a psychologist. It goes into the spiritual aspect. It goes into community aspect in terms of you have family support. And Jordan Peterson knows this firsthand himself because, he had some health issues, and he credited his family and his support of his family and extended family and friends of helping him overcome his health challenges. And I'll share some of my health challenges with you. Now, here's Kim Kardashian. She's been featured on SI magazine. I think she was on the cover. I don't think she has a 0.68 waist to hip ratio. She's a beautiful woman. In fact, when I was a young kid, the ideal of beauty was not someone who looked like a Kim Kardashian with big hips and full lips. Full lips weren't considered to be beautiful. Now women are paying money to plastic surgeons to get lip injections, and they're getting butt injections to get larger butts. Now, is that a healthy thing? I'm not saying those things are healthy. I'm saying that the perception of beauty varies, and it changes, from one population to another, and it changes over time. And I think he made that point. And so to argue and say this lady's being manipulated, okay, I don't know if she's being manipulated or not. So maybe she's being manipulated, maybe she's not. I don't think we should say that obesity is healthy, but I think that the argument should simply be that Sports Illustrated historically has used a certain body type, and that's what their critique for beauty was. That body type wasn't necessarily a healthy or athletic person. It was a person of a certain body type, and that was their arbitrary definition of beauty. Here's Naomi Campbell, again, very thin, but where's the muscle mass? Where are the biceps, triceps? She's supposed to be an extreme athlete, according to Jordan Peterson. I don't see the extreme athleticism. It's not a criticism. Here's an athlete. Look at the six pack. Look at the muscle mass there. So she's thin and she's running. She may not make it on Sports Illustrated cover magazine, but she's demonstrating extreme athleticism. There's Venus Williams again, another extreme athlete who is both beautiful, lean, has extreme athleticism, but also had a health condition she had to overcome. So when you get into this argument in terms of health and the like, it becomes very, very confusing. I should say very complex, and can become confusing if you don't take the time to think through the definitions of what you're talking about. And I'm afraid that Dr. Peterson did not do that very adequately.